rolling.
How's that?
1 second. Okay. Thank you.
So I would say in summary that he was very responsible with the monopoly that he had, the way that he priced his products, and the way that he poured back into the community a significant amount of his profits in a way that not all monopolists would necessarily do, given the temptations that were in front of them.
So, in terms of his generosity, can you tell us a little bit about Victoria Park?
I don't know a lot about it, other than in 1938 his elder son Frank died, tragically. And in his memory, he donated a wading pool to the city that was constructed in Victoria Park and was called the Frank Tooton Memorial Pool, I believe was the name on it.
Okay.
Again, another expression of his generosity. That one obviously a very public one with the name, but he was quite devastated by the loss of his son, and like many people do, they commemorate the dead in ways that are visible to the public, and in this case was actually a useful facility for the public, something that children could enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Do you know offhand if he came over a Roman Catholic?
I've had a few people speculate as to his religion. He was baptized a Christian in Damascus, Syria. I've seen the baptismal certificate. I've had some correspondence with the church where he was baptized, actually. And I believe Christians make up about 1% of the Syrian population. I think the country is primarily Shiite Muslim. So very much a minority. Now some people have told me that maybe he was a Maronite, I believe. I'm not familiar with the various religions in that part of the world, but there is a religion called Maronite, which I believe is Christian. But the church that I have the correspondence from, I believe, is called the Eastern Rite Church, or the Eastern Rite Orthodox Church. I just can't remember offhand. And then when he came here to Newfoundland, the closest religion to that would have been the Roman Catholic faith. So that was the church that he attended. He used to go to the Basilica.
And when you found yourself going down the same path as your father had, in terms of going away to school, and then to Queens and then Rochester Institute. You spent some time at the Rochester Institute of Technology, right?
I investigated going there, had an interview, visited the campus, but I never actually applied or attended.
Mm-hmm. So did you feel you were being groomed for the position?
Not necessarily. I saw it as an option,
Mm-hmm.
and I investigated it a little bit, but I didn't see it necessarily as what I had to do.
So
I never felt that I was under any pressure.
Mm-hmm. So when you look back at the whole scenario and every aspect of the history of Teutons and your involvement, do you look back with generally fond memories?
Generally fond memories. Sad ending, but very fond memories. It provided a real interesting career and an income and a livelihood. And overall, I'm very grateful that I had that experience.
And in hindsight, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Well, hindsight's 20/20. But it's water under the bridge.
Very good. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Uh, I think the relationship with Kodak, did you intend to talk about that at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you'd like to speak on that. Sure.
Um, well, this exclusive relationship with Kodak was very much, I think, a bit of an unusual one, in that I've met people from Kodak over the years that told me that he would go to Toronto, to the Royal York Hotel, which was probably Canada's most famous hotel, may still even be today, but in those days it certainly was. And he would rent out a private dining room, a large private dining room, and make arrangements with the head chef to put on a very fine meal, and then would invite from Kodak Canada a variety of people, from the executives of the company to managers that had specific dealings with Toutons, to some of the people that actually worked in the shipping department and would package the goods that would be shipped to us. And as I understand it, the way it was explained to me, it wasn't just those employees who were invited to this dinner, but it would be their wives as well. And they would be presented with corsages, and I gather probably cigars for the men, and a very lovely meal would be held. And at some point through the course of the meal, my grandfather would go and bring out the chef of the hotel to be introduced to the dinner guests, and it was a very lavish evening for those people. And he certainly saw the worth of every individual and their importance within the organization at Kodak, whereas the natural tendency would be to just deal with the executives or to deal with perhaps people in sales or marketing. He saw the importance of maintaining close relationships with all the key people in the organization, throughout the organization. And of course, what's unusual about it is normally he was the customer, and here was the customer entertaining the supplier, which is generally the reverse of the way business entertainment goes. Not always, but in this case it was quite exceptional. And the stories that I've heard around Kodak are legendary to that respect. Now, of course, Kodak Canada, I believe, only came on the scene after 1949 in Confederation, and prior to that all the dealings were, I shouldn't say all the dealings, most of the dealings were with Eastman Kodak in Rochester, New York, and to some extent Stuttgart, Germany, where some of the cameras came from and lenses. And my grandfather always felt that, I think to some extent he regretted that the business switched to Toronto, but he accepted the reality of that change and that he would be dealing with a different branch of the organization, a multinational company that it is. And it was a very, very unique and special relationship that he had with Kodak.
Mm-hmm. And did that make business easier for you when you did business with Kodak?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. It certainly, paved the way. I never had to tell anybody who Teutons were, or where we were located, or what we did, or what we meant to Kodak. Doors opened, no question about it, based on that history. And it made business very, very smooth with Kodak, very rewarding.
That said, was there a perhaps false sense of security in the end then?
No. I don't think so, because ultimately, and he would have understood this as well as anybody else, it's business. And business has to make sense to carry on. If it's not in the mutual economic interests of everybody, then it shouldn't carry on.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add with that said?
I don't think so. I was just trying to think of some of the questions that you asked the first night.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll probably be it.